Hey everybody, it is Lynn from A Bit of Birdsong. I wanted to share some thoughts before I go out to work today. I have a couple of videos coming up. I'm going to do it in two parts because they're kind of in two different categories on my YouTube channel. I often talk about the importance to me of having a little haven, and whether it's my vehicle or a tiny little space in the house, or for example this workshop, it is just something that is so important to me. When I got married at 24, I had such high hopes of a family unit that, picture the Waltons. I really wanted 10 children. I had a lot of faith. I was very involved in my church. And I married someone who seemed to be totally on the same page with all of that. I want to say, first of all, that I have a lot of care and love for the man that I married. And Jason could hear me say that. He knows what I mean. The love, the in love, the passionate love, the I want to set up a household with you. That love was killed a long time ago. I adore my Jason, but I respect the man that I married at 24 because he gave me 4 beautiful children. There are wonderful qualities there, and one of the reasons I don't say too much about him as a person or share too many details is because he's not sitting in this room to defend himself. But I do believe that he would have the character to sit here beside me and tell you that he didn't treat me right. And we went through some very deep, dark valleys together. He's the hardest working man I've ever known. When he's working, he does the work of 2 or 3 people. There are a lot of good qualities. He put a good work ethic into my children, but there was abuse there. I suffered for many years from emotional abuse and angry outbursts that were completely unnecessary and very harmful to me and the children. At some point, if the person who is inflicting these things will not get help or will not change or doesn't see a problem or doesn't care, then it's up to the other person to make a choice. And that's one of the things that is so hurtful in my faith, in my circle. I was looked down upon for some of the choices I made after leaving. And one of the really sad things about trauma, emotional trauma, abuse, depression, mental illness, those things are hidden from other people. So while on the outside I may have looked like, oh, she's strong, she made this choice, she's left, I was falling apart on the inside. I was broken, I was hurt, I was starved for kindness. I was starved for a companion. If a person has lived by themselves for 23 years and then they decide to go out and start a relationship, their criteria, their reasonings, their state of mind would be totally different from someone who has tried to have companionship and kindness within a union. I had all the responsibilities of a marriage and a mother of 4, a partner, a spouse, but I did not have the tenderness and the affection that a wife should have. So it was almost like, think about a mathematical equation. I wasn't coming out of the relationship at a positive number or even at a 0. I was coming out at a negative 100. There's no way I could have made a coherent decision. And yet there were people that I had felt really close to who would not even hug me. They were disappointed in me, and that was like a knife. And I don't want to get too sidetracked about that part of this. The second part of this video is actually going to be about budget skincare and some of the things I use at, my age. I'm going to be 58 really soon. And I've tried to take care of myself. I've had a lot of years of, I've never been a smoker really. I was, maybe smoked some in high school, which was just a very short-lived thing trying to be cool. But as an adult, I've never been a smoker. I've never really been a drinker. Most of the years raising my kids, there was absolutely no alcohol in the house. My husband and I would occasionally have a glass of wine or a beer or something, but it was very limited. We wanted to be good examples for the kids in that area. Now that I am older and I also worried about the risk of cancer and things like that with having too much alcohol in my diet. So like through my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, I was basically a non-drinker. I do now mostly have a glass of wine with a meal at night or before a meal, and I usually limit it to one glass. I'm kind of getting sidetracked talking about the skincare thing, but I think a clean life, I think lack of smoking, lack of drinking, plus I had my garden with all of my infusions that I made. Oh, I had so many wonderful plants. I had chickweed, dandelions. We didn't put anything artificial on the yard. No fertilizers that were chemical. We never sprayed for weeds. The front yard was pretty much mostly a cottage garden, and then in the back I had a gated garden where I kept all of these vegetables and herbs, and I did the best I could. I never really got to the point of gardening status that I wanted to be at. But I had a lot of greens in my diet, and I feel like that clean living has helped me with my skin, although it's definitely not as good as some other people I see. And I've had way too many cookies and potato chips and fast food in the last few years. I just hit a wall at some point. Going back to the responsibility of being a partner and a spouse and a mother, I cooked for 6 people for years, and we ate a lot of venison. There was a lot of work went into cooking, and there are some beautiful, beautiful, wonderful memories from the years in that old house. I knew that he would never leave. I knew that if it was going to be a case of me getting separated from that I would have to leave, and that's what I did. I say that the house is a perfect picture of the way I was cared for. The house has been bulldozed. It had a lot of structural problems that grew over the years, and it wasn't attended to. I don't know which word is right. I took care of the inside of the house. I kept things clean. I took delight in finding wonderful things from the thrift store. I made curtains. I loved baking and cooking and had a little organ. We didn't have room, even though it was a big old house, we didn't have room for a piano. The rooms were typical early 1900s. They were small in square footage this way, very high ceilings, 10-foot ceilings. But I had an organ like a keyboard that played different sounds, and I loved trying to play the hymns on that. It was just, a lot of ways, it was an idyllic, old-fashioned country lifestyle. But when I left, I moved into an apartment big enough to take care of all 4 of my growing children if they wanted to come stay with me. I had 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, a really pretty dining room, kind of a solarium little office type deal with a very large window that let in a lot of light, and a little kitchen / dining room. I would say that I immediately was taken advantage of by another man who just really wanted me in his life, and I was too vulnerable to make a decision that was good for me and good for my children. And I promise I'm getting to the part about havens and spaces that are mine. So I moved from my old house of 23 years. I moved into that apartment. I really didn't even have time to go back to my maiden name, because a little over a year after I left, I married this person and moved myself and 2 of my children to a different town, to different schools, to a different house. That lasted about a year, and it was a nightmare. I left there and moved back to an apartment small enough to accommodate me and 1 of my children. 2 of my children were completely grown, and one of them was growing up. He was 17. He had already left. He had already left that situation. He wasn't going to stay there. And my baby, my daughter, had made it clear too that she didn't want to be there. So I moved, like I said, to a small apartment to have room for my one child, and got settled again. Then I upgraded to a bigger apartment, and these two moves, I slept on the couch. The first one was a one bedroom. My daughter was in high school. I felt like she needed her privacy. I gave her the bedroom. Then when we moved up, that youngest son did come back and move in with me, which was wonderful. He was like the man of the house. It was rocky. I went from a huge decision to leave our home life into another horrible decision to drag us through different schools in a different town, different dynamics, things that my kids should not have been exposed to, and then into two more moves. And here, of course, I'm with Jason. This could turn into a 2-hour conversation. I never, ever dreamed that I would move into a man's house. One, because of my faith. I feel like marriage is really important. Whatever people think of me for having been married twice and being here now, you have not walked in my shoes. Maybe your home place wasn't bulldozed. Maybe a lack of care did not leave you without a nest egg, without retirement, without a home place for your kids to come back to, without a soft landing place. Maybe you had those things. So before you judge, you need to know that you did not walk in these shoes. Jason is my best friend in the world. His number one goal for me is my emotional, spiritual, physical health, all as a whole, complete human being. He would give me space in this house because he cares about me and he loves me and he sees that need for space. Let me tell you, when my house was bulldozed, I had already been gone for about 7 years. I've been gone now for about 10 years. And to walk across, and supposedly that house was going to be kept for the kids. Again, it is a perfect picture of the present care, the future care, just the overall attention or lack thereof from one person to his family. To walk across that lot and to pick up pieces of the walls and to see colors of paint that came from your daughter's room, a room that you had played dolls in with your daughter, a room that you had sat in bed and had popcorn and watched, movies, Disney movies, and Little House on the Prairie, The Waltons, different shows that we love to watch. To see bits and pieces of the antique mirror that had been above the hearth in the living room. Someone who was involved in the renovation of this lot and some restorations. We were really close to a historic section in Hillsboro. She was stunned when she found out that I was the one who had lived in that house. And the outside of the house had been let go to it was just a mass of, the garden had been completely untended since I left. And it looked like a haunted house, and the inside had been completely let go. The lack of care that was already there escalated to a level that the house was not livable. It was not salvageable. It sold, and I should have been a beneficiary of that beautiful property. It was a double lot in a very desirable place in Hillsboro. But when she found out that I was the one who lived in that house, I could just feel the care and the warmth, and like, oh my gosh, I did not know that was you. So she took me to the property, and that's when I had a chance to walk across the lot and pick up these pieces. And I'll have to share with you sometime. I've got a few pieces of that mirror that are going into an art project. But she helped me dig up some plants to bring home. And I mean, she just got right out there in it. Things had grown into the garden. There was even poison ivy out there. And she said, I don't care. You need some of these cuttings and plants. And that's how I have a piece of the foundation from that house that's in my garden here at Jason's. And I hope to never leave this place. But then, so just, it's really hard to talk about this without crying, and I don't want to cry. I go to work today, and I have my little Valentine's Day scarf in my hair, and I've already done my Dollar Tree makeup ritual, so I don't want to cry. But when you move like I moved, and every move was under stress, all the things that I bought, all these little things that meant a lot to me, things on the walls, dishes. I had shopped at thrift stores for 20 years. I had amazing old antique, bread bowls, big ceramic bowls, wash bowls, wooden things. I had vintage, like the hand mixers. I had an antique coffee grinder. I had a beautiful antique enamel table. I had a shelf that went up the wall of the 10-foot ceiling. It took me years to find that shelf and to haul it home. And I had never had much help from anyone else. I did a lot on my own. And, I lost all these things. And then every subsequent move, I lost a little bit more. I went through a really dark time, even in the past couple of years, and Jason has stood right by my side, where I just get rid of everything. And I feel like it comes from an insecurity of thinking, well, you won't get to keep it anyway. I'm healing from that, and Jason has helped me heal from that. So to me, having a space that's mine and to know that it's permanent, and that I can collect things and keep those things, I'm starting to rest in that. I can't explain why I like tiny little spaces that are mine. Like that little greenhouse. I don't have time to do much with it, but just to step inside of there and think, this 8 square feet, this is mine. Or 10 square feet, whatever it is, 20 square feet, I don't know, it's not that big. I'm trying to, calculate for the height too. To know that this workshop is a place that I can get where nobody else can see me. Nobody can take anything away from me in here. My vehicle, where I can lock the doors. It's an act of possession, and it's an act of trust. Sounds so bizarre. I don't expect everybody to understand. But I love my little spaces. And right now, my favorite little spaces are the workshop, my vehicle, and my bathroom. When I first started, and my kids, as they started to get grown, they needed their space. I don't mind being open. My youngest son, who was with me, like I said, he was kind of the man of the house in that apartment. He ended up taking that apartment over. All of my children have this wonderful work ethic. My daughter's 22 now, so we've worked through some years. I mean, we've really been through it. But I looked at houses for a while to purchase for myself. And honestly, it began to make less and less sense, because while I think I needed a material place that was mine, and that now is this place, hopefully the future's not going to cause me to have to move again. I don't think so. I have, sometimes I feel like Jason and I are one, and even though we've had, and we want to be one, we're engaged, we need to get married. I know we need to get married. In spite of having two very different childhoods and a lot of different experiences, there's a thread in my life and in his. Those two threads just run right along beside each other, and we can feel and sense things in each other that just draw out this most tender, protection towards each other. So I'm really happy here. I think I know that I've done a lot of healing, but when I talk about my little spaces and how important they are to me, that maybe this gives you some background. I've lost a lot of material things, and material things are not everything, but a lot of us, even when we're facing challenges, emotional challenges, loss, sickness, job loss, whatever, many of us have a home base and a long-term home base that we deal with those things inside of. We're in our space. My nest was torn up and destroyed 6 times. And every time the move was under stress, there was a lot of financial burden in all of that. You have to put deposits down on everything every time you move. And, I've done the best that I could do. With that, I'm going to wrap up. So it's so funny to have a 2-part video series of, the first part is like this emotional, overwhelming, from the ground up, where I'm talking about healing from emotional abuse. And then the second part is Dollar Tree skincare. But I think you have to know, this first part explains a little bit why I love my little bathroom space. And it explains too, why it is necessary for me to shop at the Dollar Tree. I'm definitely on a budget, and I feel like I'm rebuilding from, I'm starting from a point that most people start out when they're in their 20s. I've lost a lot. So that said, I hope you enjoy this, that you can glean something from it. I will say, if I could offer anybody the biggest piece of advice, do not get into a relationship immediately after making a huge, devastating decision to leave another relationship. Now, I know when you're young, sometimes you can be, have a boyfriend and that's not it, and then you meet Mr. Right. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like a marriage with kids and years. I can't tell anybody what to do, but my doctor, my family doctor that I had seen for a long time, she begged me not to get married the second time. She said, I think you need a chance to heal. And I was like a deer in 20 headlights. I didn't know what was going on. All I know was that a part of me that was starved for kindness was getting kindness. There are many other chapters beyond that told the truth about whether or not that kindness was real, whether or not it would continue, whether or not I was going to be happy in a new place. I had not healed. I had not processed everything that I had been through, all the loss, and it also took away from my children a time frame in which they needed to be healing as well. So I would just implore anyone, give yourself some time to let all of the thoughts settle. There's a lot of fallout. There's going to be fallout. I still have fallout. In this, Jason can tell you, in the past 8 months, I've just, plucked a lot of stuff out of my belongings and gotten rid of it in this emotional storm where I don't want anything. I don't want anything anymore. And that's different from the decluttering I've been talking about. This is a very emotionally charged action. It comes from, I think, a place of loss. So I'm going to hush now, and hopefully we can talk sometime again soon. I don't do these videos all the time. They're very draining, and they're difficult. But if you're healing from loss and from emotional abuse, I wish you peace and healing and love.